Hello, Design 101. Today we're going to discuss the isometric basics. Alright, in an isometric plan, it is a 30-degree axis, 30 degrees the other way. The interior partitions shown on the upper left-hand drawing show the 30-60 isometric. The next other isometric that is used in architecture and design is a 45-degree isometric, which is shown in the lower right-hand corner. Moving on to the next page. Okay, there are four basic ways to do projection systems in architecture. We've got isometric, we've got oblique, we've got actual perspective, and we've got orthographic. So the orthographic is the straight on plans, sections, elevations. Alright, moving on to the next page. Now, on the upper right hand corner of this drawing is shown the isometric projection for a 30-60 isometric. So the whole point of this simulated three-dimensional thing is that you have a viewing plane and that you're looking at the object and you're making it look like it's actually in 3D. And so then to take the isometric into AutoCAD, we will go ahead and create a new fresh drawing with architectural units. And I'm going to go from the 3D Basics workspace here. I'm going to change to drafting and annotation. And I'm going to make sure that all of my isometric settings are enabled. Isometric drafting on, our polar cursor restrictions that force us into 30, 60, 90, and our two-dimensional grid snap with the dots if we wish to display that. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start working in the ISO left plane. Turn ISO on if it's off. Select your plane, ISO left. We draw the line. We're going to start the first line, and we'll set our polar positioning and type in the distance, which is 22 feet. Enter. And zoom way out on that. So we're going to set the other side, the base point. Set my polar tracking 30 degrees and type in 30 feet in the other direction for the crash. I'm going to go ahead and draw the other two lines to give you a better idea of the base. Okay, and polar tracking, and it is in fact a rectangle. Okay, next line I'm going to draw, I'm going to set my polar tracking vertical and draw the 9'1" stud. I inserted this screen grab to review the framing. Alright, so this is just a bitmap of the framing showing that the 9'1" is going from the bottom of the bottom plate to the top of the top plate. So that tells us important information that we need to know as we create our isometric. Alright, next I'm going to copy the vertical line around. A copy command. Okay, I'm going to use this endpoint snap, get all four of my corners. I'm also then going to copy the baseline up on top. So, oops, I copied this over. Let me just erase that. Copy that first one wrong. I mean the second one wrong. Alright, and my trim did not appear to work out. set my line, and I want to copy this. Oops. I want to copy this line in the polar 30-degree angle, 1.5 inches. Okay. I'm going to next give it another slight gap here. Based on the way they've shown the framing, there's about a 2-inch gap. Use 2 inches. And then I'm going to do it again, 1.5. And this will be the starting point of my framing. Okay, I'm now going to work my way into 2 of the other corners. Okay, I'm going to go over to this corner and make the end condition for that. Copy this over, use my polar tracking, and move it over 3.5 inches. Okay, I'm going to do a similar thing at this end. I'm going to repeat the copy and take my end corner line, polar tracking, copy that 3.5 inches. Then go ahead, I'm going to trim out these lines. Trim out that one. Trim out this bottom one. Okay. Moving back to the left corner here, okay, we are going to copy this line. Copy this line over 1.5 inches to represent the studs. I set my polar angle at 330. Type in 1.5, 1.5 inch over. All right, now we're able to array these lines down 16 inches apart. Let's do that. Use our array command. Select these 2 lines. And I'm going to use my path array. Enter. Select the path. And show my rows. I have 1 row. And I'm going to have columns with 16 inches on center. Okay. 16. And there will be 16 inches on center. Close that array. I've got my basic framing started for this wall. I'm going to explode that now that the array is done. I need these to be individual lines so I can work on them. Alright, so that gives you the idea, the real fast and easy way on how to do the wall. Now, how would we do the roof framing? Okay, now remember that our rise is 6/12. So that means for every 12 inches in length, there is 6 inches that the rafters rise up. Okay? So this gives us, in our 30-foot wall with a 1-foot overhang, this gives us a 16-foot rafter on each side. So 16 feet times 6 inches is 96 inches of rise. So the rise is going to be in the very center of the building along the 30-foot side. So what we're going to do here is draw a reference line. I'm going to start with my midpoint of this wall, and I'm going to set my polar coordinates and type in 96. This then gives me the angle for my joist. I'm going to snap into this corner. Okay, this creates my rafter. going to make the line on the other side. Repeat that. Alright, so now how do we create the rafter difference? The distance of the 1 foot overhang. We're going to go ahead and copy. We'll start on this side, copy this line, set my polar tracking, right, and go 12 inches. I'm going to then fill it with a radius of 0 to create my length. Okay, I'm going to erase this reference line because I don't need it anymore, and go to the other side. So on the other side, do the same thing. I'm going to copy this line, this very top line. I'm going to set my polar angle to 210, right? So it's parallel here. Type in 12 inches and do my fillet command. Okay, that gives me the length of my rafters. Alright, now a rafter is a 2 by 10, so it's 1.5 inches across on top. I'm going to copy this line. I'm going to set my polar tracking to the proper angle and type in 1.5, 1.5 inches. Okay, so that is the width. So now my rafter is actually 10 inches. It's a 2 by 10, so it's 9.5 inches tall. I'm going to go ahead and copy that. Copy it up to make the rafter. So this time I set my polar coordinates straight up at 90, type in 9.5, and this shows me the top of my rafter. I'm going to go now and draw the end of my rafter. So the end of my rafter that you see here, it's going to be represented by these lines right here. Just drawing that. Okay. Let me now trim out some of these things to show you what is really going on here. Some of the trimming done. Let me just go ahead, erase some of these things, get rid of some of these guys here. Okay, trim that out. One little piece here. And so you can see that is what the end of one of the joists looks like. So now we have a great opportunity here. We can just use our copy command and copy this joist, get all the pieces to it, the end pieces, and so now we can copy reference at this point here, and we can just then snap in to each place, and we're confident that it's 1.4 apart. I'm snapping to the top of the right hand side, making sure I get the end point. So you can see now we may want to do some things here to help ourselves, and so now I've created a couple of layers. I'm going to take some of my items and move them onto different layers to make it easier to work with. So right now you can see I've got some pre-created layers, rafters, studs, and ellipse, right, in anticipation that we're going to do the ellipse cutting out the roof hole. So I'm going to now take my rafters and put them on a separate layer, and I'm going to put my studs on a separate layer. So let's go ahead, we'll start with the studs for right now. Okay, properties, put them onto the layer, studs. Properties, we're gonna layer studs. So we can see our rafters a little bit clearer now. Alright, and a few more lines here to fix up. So those are those studs. Now we can turn this off. Let's turn off the layer studs. We can now go over to the other side. Oops, I see one. Change the property of that line. One more thing that should be on the layer studs. Okay. And you see now I have this rafter line from the other side. I'm going to go ahead and copy it. Alright. Copy it up 9.5 inches. And repeat my copy. Do my polar. 1.5 inches in that direction. So what does that look like? So that is my rafter on the other side from this view. And I just need a couple more lines. I need to make a line from here to there to there. Okay. I can now copy my other rafter all the way across. Alright, I've selected that. I'm getting a view where I can see them all. Enter. Oh, copy. Base point here. Select here. Select the right hand side of the joist. You see we're marching across there. Alright. And you know how to trim those out, so you go ahead and trim those rafters out of there later. My next effect will be to create the ellipse. I'm going to create this ellipse, axis end, and I create it. Start about here, get out of here. And then make it about like that. Okay, now my ellipse, I'm going to push and move that into position because that helps me. It's going to help me cut a hole in my roof. So the ellipse, I'm going to change that to the ellipse layer. And these I want to move on to the rafter layer. Alright, properties, and then put those on the rafter layer. And I'm going to go ahead and delete this line. That was a reference line. Okay, so to cut out that circular, the elliptical hole, we use trim. We select our ellipse, enter, and I can use a window crossing. I can pick these, pick them all at once almost. Okay, and there is my trimmed out ellipse for the rafters. You can then turn off the ellipse. We also have roof joists. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and draw those roof joists on the, go ahead and draw it on the stud layer. Okay, so the roof joist will end up being next to the roof rafters. So if I draw a line, I'm going to come in here and specify this point. It starts right next to the joist. I'm going to go up 9.5. And then this joist, we want to extend out here a bit. So we want to extend it out so that we can show that it is 9.5, and then go back here, polar coordinates, and finish up my joist. Alright, so I'm going to copy this over, copy this and this over 1.5 inches in this polar direction, 1.5, and draw another line. Alright, so this, what they're showing is the joist has been trimmed off a little bit, so they have some kind of a feature like this in the joist. I'm going to copy that. Polar distance 1.5. Alright, so we can go ahead and fillet this. Fillet this, and it gives me my typical joist. A couple more lines here. Two lines here, and what they're showing is that this little corner has been cut off, so the joist can sit in there nicely right next to the roof rafter. Alright, one more line here to finish off this roof rafter, and it's a typical roof rafter, and then you copy that across. Go with copy, pick all these elements here, and pick my reference point here, and then I'm going to go ahead and snap these guys in. Point is that point. This is showing the typical joist layout. And I think that we've demonstrated just about everything that you need to know here. So I'm leaving you on your own to do the rest, but I think that this is giving you a great start, and you should now be able to complete the framing.